So I'm going to pass it off to Emily Valentine, and we will go from there.
Yes, once again, thank you so much for being here. Boys and girls lacrosse, I know you're encouraged to be here, but it's something you're definitely going to want to see, so thank you for showing out. Any psychology students that are here, thank you for being here as well. We're really, really fortunate to be joined by Mr. and Mrs. Turner and their daughter, Emily. We are here to carry on Patrick's purpose and Patrick's message, but more than that, we are here for you. His purpose was to hopefully make the world a little bit better for students like you, and we're so happy that you've come to join us and hopefully continue in his quest to improve the culture of our school. So first we will have Mr. and Mrs. Turner. Mrs. Turner has prepared a little speech for you guys, and as she is speaking, feel free to think of any questions. We will have a Q&A portion afterwards, and we're here to be transparent and be vulnerable, so don't be afraid to speak up. And without any further ado, here is Mrs. Turner.
Thank you. Wow, this turnout is incredible. I'm really pleased and proud that you all chose to come in here and take this time to be with us. I just have a message briefly because it is Suicide Prevention Month. So I wanted to just share some thoughts with you, a little bit about what we have learned over the last couple years. So here it goes. First of all, actually I want to thank ASB and Mr. Dobbins for having us back here. This is our home school, so we really appreciate that. As many of you probably know, September is National Suicide Prevention Month. 4 years ago, I would not have blinked twice or even thought about suicide. I didn't want to talk about such a dark topic or even mental health in general. It just seemed like it had no relevance to me, and it was frankly kind of scary. But boy, what a difference a few years makes. Now it's a very important topic to me, and it should be important to you too. In 2018, our son Patrick was a sophomore here at CDM. He was a good student, got A's and B's, but we knew he really didn't like school all that much. What he did love was sports. He played football and baseball here and absolutely loved both. He admired his coaches and he loved his teammates. They had so much fun together. Patrick also loved to ski, fish, golf, go to the beach. He was basically the yes guy for any adventure. He was close to his siblings. He drove to school with his brother. He kept in touch with Emily, who was far away working, and his other brother who was away at school. We're a close family. In January of 2018, the weekend before finals, Patrick died by suicide. Little side note, by the way, did you know that when you say committed suicide, it's a little bit offensive? In the olden days, it was literally a crime to take your own life, and a family was fined. So anyway, we were shocked, devastated, left in complete disbelief. We still are. How could this happen to a kid who seemed to be so connected to his family and friends? How could this happen to someone who was not bullied? He was a pretty good student, and he was an athlete. Patrick had been suffering in silence, and we had absolutely no idea. He did a really great job of hiding his misery. We don't want any of you to ever suffer in silence. That's why we're here today, to talk about mental health and give you some tips about how to take care of yourselves as well as others. We want to prevent the tragedy of suicide. Okay, so statistics are really boring. I hope there's not a statistics teacher here. But I do want to share just a little information so that you can understand the size of the teen mental health crisis in our country. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. Car accidents are the #1 cause, but that's another talk for another day. More teenagers die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, the flu, and chronic lung disease combined. And I'm sure you could throw COVID in there too. 4 out of 5 individuals considering suicide give some sign of their intentions, either verbally or behaviorally. And to me, that is really good news, because if we learn about what signs to look for, we can intervene and avoid another tragedy. So here are some suicide warning signs. Talking about wanting to die or kill themselves, giving away valued possessions, significant changes in behavior or habits, increased use of drugs or alcohol, feelings of unbearable pain, withdrawal, moodiness, or prolonged depression, failing grades or declining quality in schoolwork, feelings of hopelessness, having no reason to live, and talking about being a burden to others. So what can you do to help if a friend shows some of these signs? First of all, don't tell them they're wrong for the way they're thinking, and don't try to be their counselor. Do take every situation really seriously, even a comment that's made kind of in joke. And importantly, tell a trusted adult. Even if your friend said, "Don't share my secret," it is really important. That's a secret that you can tell a trusted adult. Could be a coach, a counselor, a teacher, a parent. And do tell them that there is hope and help available. You guys live in a community that is highly competitive. It is a great place to live, but the pressure to be a great student with a super high GPA or a recruited athlete can be difficult to bear. There is so much talk about what college you're going to attend. All of the pressure to live up to everyone's expectations can be stressful, and it can definitely wear on your mental health. So I encourage you all to choose a path that makes you happy. It's not what your parents want, and it's not what your best friend might want. Try to figure out what works for you. In many families, it is just assumed that you will go to college. But maybe that's not the right fit for you. Or maybe you want to go in a year or two. It's perfectly okay to make those choices. And your parents love you, and they want you to be happy. So it's important that you tell them what you're thinking and how you're feeling. The more we talk openly about suicide and mental health, especially in this crazy COVID environment that we all have endured, the better it will be. We can break down the stigma of talking about it and normalize it. My best message is that taking care of your mental health is just like going to the dentist. It's maintenance to get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. So why not go get a mental checkup every 6 months? It's part of your overall well-being, and that is nothing to be ashamed of. I'm encouraged that Emily and my other adult kids talk about their mental health with their friends, and it's really no big deal to them. You guys are the ones and the generation to change the way our society thinks about this. Patrick's death is tragic. We miss him every minute, every single day. And even though we lost him, he left a huge message for all of us. And that is that we need to talk with each other, check in with each other, and be honest if you're not doing so well. It's okay to not be okay. It's normal and really important to talk about and take care of your mental health. I hope my message today has been helpful. We have some little cards that are the size of a business card. We call them our self-care cards. And it's just some little tips on how to talk to a friend that you're worried about and how to take care of yourself. The writing is tiny on it, but you guys have better eyes than I do. So I think you'll all hopefully take one of those as you leave, and that will be helpful to you.
All right, thank you very much. Wonderful, Kim Turner. I think it is very admirable the amount of strength that it takes to get up there and to speak, even just for someone who has no stake in what they're saying, but for someone who is delivering a message so powerful, I know it can be extra nerve-wracking. So thank you very much. Once again, we are very, very fortunate to have you. I'm going to pass off my mic to Mr. Turner, and we're going to do a Q&A session. So any questions that any of you may have pertaining to what they've said, go ahead and ask them now. And it can be anything that you're struggling with, anything that maybe a friend has said to you and you're wondering if it's cause to talk to an adult. If there's nothing, I can get us started off.
You get them started with the ones that we came up with.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one.
Oh, we do have one in the back. Ella.
What would you say to somebody that's worried about a friend but feels like it might be overstepping boundaries to tell an adult?
Do it anyway. I mean, if you were worried about somebody and you didn't say anything and something bad happened, you'd carry that around with the rest of your life. There might be a period of time where it might put a strain on your relationship, but I'd say it's worth it, and you have to do it.
Okay, I have a question. Do you think that crisis or helplines are worthwhile? If not, is there any other place to reach out if you're feeling upset or desperate but you don't want to talk to somebody that you know in person?
I think crisis lines are a great place to start. There are several numbers and resources listed on that care card that we'll be handing out. And there's always going to be a warm voice on the other end of that line who will maybe direct you to something that's more local or something that's more specific to what you need. There's also lots of apps right now that I think that is kind of emerging. As you guys live on your phones, we all do. So it's just a really easy place to, check in with somebody or check in with if I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling depressed. So.
And the text line, and you don't have to be in crisis.
And I think the other popular mechanism that's come up is like the lines that you can just text somebody from. And I think the biggest thing that we've learned in our research is that you don't necessarily need to be in like a place of crisis to reach out. They are, they would rather talk to you probably before you get to that point, because I think there's more ways that they can point you, to help you that way. So.
Can I ask one? Oh, no, go ahead. Relax.
Let's say I'm worried about something to someone. Is there anything I can personally do? Or is it better to tell someone if I'm someone else that's trained?
Well, I think the big thing is talk to them, but listen to them. That's the biggest thing, is if you can get them to talk to you. Sometimes this is just, it's been building up inside for so many years. I mean, we think that it's possible that Patrick had these feelings from maybe as young as 11. And we've talked to professionals who, well, they really want to talk to this age group. What they'd really like to do is start talking to 5th and 6th graders, because if they could give kids at that age coping skills to deal with when something goes bad, or they didn't get invited to a party, or they didn't make the all-star team, how do you deal with those disappointments in life? And somehow, and I'm the same one. I'm usually the guy when Patty would complain about something, it was like, hey, get over it. That's life. And but that's not really the way we should handle it. So I think it's really just about talk, but really listening and seeing what the issues are. Like Emily said, it may be something that is, starts off to be not that big a deal, and that's the best time to deal with it, when it's not a big deal.
So I'm just going to ask. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
What's the best way to foster open communication with your parents about mental health? What are good ways to start that discussion? Because I know that can be hard.
Well, in our family, they'd go to mom. But I don't know, do you have any?
She's how to talk to parents.
Yeah.
I just think, as I said in my comments a little bit earlier, your parents love you. They want you to be happy. So I think you need to find a way to feel comfortable to share how you're really feeling. And just keep remembering that. They want you to be happy. Parents are competitive too. I mean, we all want to brag about how great our kids are. So I think that little element is part of our puzzle that we're dealing with here in our community. But just remember that they're there for you. They want you to be happy. They would want to know how you are truly feeling. Don't hide it from them.
And a piece of advice that I have to add to that is go into speaking to your parents with the expectation that they may not understand the way that you feel. It's difficult to be expressing yourself and then get frustrated because they don't understand. So just knowing that they may not understand from the get-go gives you the expectation that you might have to be patient with them and they have to be patient with you. And there are some cases that they will just never understand how you're feeling, but knowing that you aren't feeling great is hopefully enough for them to want to help you. So have your expectation that they might not get entirely how you're feeling, but know that they can tell when you're not feeling good and that they'll want to help as much as they can with that understanding.
And maybe practice with somebody that isn't your parent that you feel comfortable with. If it was a coach or a teacher, they maybe can help you get to that place where it becomes a little bit more comfortable. I want to tell us a little quick story because this, affects everybody in this room and everybody on this campus. So, I don't know, probably 4 months after Patrick died, I don't think we'd left the house to do anything socially, and we said a lot of no's to people that, we weren't going to go to dinner with them, and we finally went to dinner with this couple, and he made this statement at dinner. It was so powerful, I actually asked him if he could recount it, and he said he'd do the best he could, and he texted it to me. But he said, and I think for any of you who were at his funeral, it was across the street at Our Lady Queen of Angels, and it was there because there was not another venue to hold that many people, and the only area of the church where there weren't somebody was the main aisle. And somebody said they thought there were 2,000 people there. And I couldn't believe that because I don't think I know 2,000 people. But I think it was just the shock that a kid who seemingly was perfectly fine did this. And what this dad said was, he said, I wanted to get there early because I knew the entire community was going to be there. And so I wanted to get an aisle seat because I sort of wanted to see what was going to go on. And he said, when the recessional, we were walking out of the church, and the football and baseball team were walking behind the casket, he said, I just looked at these kids. He said, at a point in time in their lives where as parents, we try to drive perfection into them, they're probably at their most imperfect time of your life. He said, I saw kids that were too tall, kids that were too short, kids that were too skinny, kids that were too fat, kids that had pimples, kids that had funny hair, all the entire gambit. And it's such a weird time of life where you're growing mentally, you're growing physically, your brain's changing, your body's changing, and all parents were like, hey, you need to get a 4.2 or a 4.5 or a perfect score on the ACT. I mean, it's just mind-boggling what we do, our generation does, to you guys, and it's just not fair. It really isn't fair. If we're going to do this, you should have this done in your mid-20s, but not when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 years old. So I thought that was pretty insightful of what he was thinking that day.
What are some things to be mindful of when you're speaking to someone who has issues with mental health?
I think the question was, what are some things to be mindful of when you're speaking to someone who may have a mental health struggle? I think most importantly, to listen. Don't judge. Just say things like, I'm here for you, you're not alone, you matter. Do you want me to just listen today? Or do you want some advice? Be very open. And if that person is down a dark path, as we said before, please tell somebody that you trust who's older, who will help in a higher level. Yeah.
What are some tips about talking to parents about putting too much pressure on you with like grades and school and sports?
What are some tips about talking to parents when they put too much pressure on you? First of all, I just want to tell you all, we're trying to have a parent meeting in the near future because I think we're all in this together and everybody needs to be on the same page. So kind of to jump on what Emily had said, I think it's just important to be totally honest and tell them that it's affecting you in a negative way and that, you know, as long as you're trying your best, that's good enough. And like I said before, your parents love you, they want you to be happy, but they want to know if things are not going well. Don't hide it.
Yeah, I would say, I think it was probably in our family, we're the best example. I never talked about you had to go to college. It was, I think our kids just thought, well, that's, mom and dad went to college, and then when Emily went to college, the rest of them were like, well, that's just what we do, we go to college. And even Patrick, in one of his letters, he said, we didn't put any pressure on him. But, you know, what he said was all the talk around school is about what your grade was and what college you got into and, you know, your test scores. And Kim and I joked, we thought Patrick, and this is honest, we thought he was going to be a fishing guide in the summer and a ski instructor in the winter, and I think that would have made him totally happy. And if he came to us and said, look, I don't want to go to college, it would have been fine. But I think he thought that the expectation that was just the path you had to take. So what I would tell all of you is that you have a say in your life and have that conversation with your parents, because by the way, they're going to invest a ton of money into a college degree for you, or you're going to take on a bunch of debt. And like Kim said, college may be great. Maybe it's not right when you graduate from high school. Maybe you should take a year off and go work somewhere or do something else, and then figure out what your passions are, as opposed to just maybe blindly going in and finding out that this isn't going real well. I actually have a really good friend who, he came to my office at work, and it was just unusual because he didn't really have anything to say, and I was busy, and he wanted to not talk in my office, he wanted to talk in a conference room, and I sat down and he started crying, and I was like, what's wrong? And his son took him back to school, and his dad went to pay the tuition bill, and the registrar's office said, well, he's not enrolled here anymore. He failed last semester. He was so afraid to tell his parents that school wasn't working out for him that he went back for his sophomore year. They went to Target and bought all the things for his apartment, and this poor kid was living in a lie. And what my friend said was, he thanked us, and really Kim, but he said, I would have never handled that situation the same way 4 years ago. He probably would have read his kid the Riot Act and how come he wasn't working hard and all that, and all he told him was, I love you, and we're going to get this thing figured out. And he said sort of this weight of this lie on his youngest son's shoulders, who I think was born a month apart from Patrick, was completely lifted off of him. And he started to talk to him about, there's a bunch of different paths. His son said, well, if I don't go to college, I'm not going to get a job. And his dad said, that's not true. That's not true at all. You may be limited in some ways, but maybe those are jobs that you have no interest in. So as Kim said, your parents do love you, and I would challenge all of you to go home tonight and at least just start a conversation. Say, hey, I went to this thing today at lunch. I just want to make sure if I'm ever in a tough spot that you're going to be open to listening to me. I don't think any of your parents are going to say no.
And the very last thing on that, kind of building off that last statement, I think as much as, you know, we would all love our parents to be mind readers, that we all do a really good job of putting on a brave face, and, you know, when they do, you know, ask why, you know, where you want to go to college, we don't often speak up and say maybe that's not for me. So I think just the open dialogue, and like my dad said a second ago, doing it before you have a problem, like an ounce of prevention is definitely worth a pound of cure. So do it early.
Do we need to wrap up?
Thank you guys so much again for being here, staying over lunch a little bit. Thank you. Thank you to the planners.
Thank you, guys.
We do have resources. We have their little business cards that'll be handed out at the doors. They have an Instagram. Make sure you follow them so you can get involved. They do walks. They post inspirational things. And thank you once again so much for being here. Take care of yourself.
If anyone has any questions that needs to stay around, I'm sure they